In this episode of the Everything 90s podcast, I'll be sharing 10 fun facts about the Disney Pixar classic Toy Story. If you are a new listener, hello and welcome. I'm your host, Shaleena. I created Everything 90s podcast for folks who grew up in the 1990s like me, and in each episode, I take you on a nostalgic trip, revisiting the pop culture highs of that decade. One of my favorite parts of podcasting is connecting with you all, so whether you're a longtime listener or just joining us for the first time, I'd love to chat with you over at Club 90s, the official Everything 90s fan club. Here you can connect with other Everything 90s listeners and stay in the loop with podcasts behind the scenes. I recently watched the live-action remake of Snow White, and on Club 90s, I posted a quick review of my overall thoughts on the movie, so be sure to check that out. Click the link to Club 90s in today's show notes to join. Today, as I mentioned in the intro, I'll be sharing fun facts about the Toy Story movie in celebration of its 30th anniversary later this year. So before diving into the fun facts, I'll give a brief summary of what this movie is about, just in case if anyone's listening and they haven't seen this movie. Don't worry, no judgment from me. Hey, somebody might be listening to this episode in the future and have no idea what Toy Story was about. So this is also for them. All right. So Toy Story came out in 1995 on November 22nd, and it was produced by Pixar and Walt Disney Studios. And they made history with this movie because it was the first full-length movie that was fully 100% computer generated. And they have a Guinness World Record for that. So the plot, it follows a set of toys that belong to a boy named Andy, and they come alive when humans aren't watching them. At the time when this movie came out, I remember this being the coolest concept ever, and I remember as a kid wondering, hey, do my toys come to life when I leave my room? And I have this memory of me leaving my Barbies out, my other toys out, closing my room door just a little bit, like leaving a little inch and peeking on my toys to see if they would actually come alive like in the movie. Obviously that didn't happen, but yeah, I thought this was such a cool idea, and this definitely drew me into watching this movie and loving this movie because it was very relatable and creative for kids at the time. So the two main characters in this movie are Woody and Buzz Lightyear. Woody was voiced by Tom Hanks, and he is a cowboy doll with a pull string. So when you pull the string on his back, he says a bunch of different phrases. And Buzz Lightyear is a Space Ranger action figure. Woody is the longtime favorite toy of Andy and becomes jealous when Buzz arrives on the scene, capturing Andy's attention. Buzz was a birthday present for Andy, and he begins to play with Buzz a lot more than Woody, and even the other toys start to show more interest in Buzz, which rubs Woody the wrong way and leads him to create a plan on how to get rid of Buzz. This plan ultimately leads to the both of them getting lost in the outside world, and along the way they learn to put aside their rivalry, their differences, and work together to return home before Andy moves to a new house. And that's basically the gist of the movie plot. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. There are currently 5 movies in this franchise at the time of recording. So the first one came out in 95. Toy Story 2 came out in 1999. Toy Story 3 came out in 2010. Toy Story 4 came out in 2019. And Lightyear, which focuses on Buzz, came out in 2022. I owned the first Toy Story and the second one. I do remember I did see the third one, but I vaguely remember what the plot was about. I think Andy gets rid of his toys and donates them to a daycare. And there's a pink bear involved. I think he's the villain in the movie, but yeah, I've seen it once and don't remember much from it. But if anyone's listening right now and you're a fan of 3, 4, and 5, let me know. I will watch it. Right now I have no interest in watching any of the Toy Stories past 2, but if you recommend it, I'll check it out. So let me know in the comments here on YouTube if you are watching, or on Spotify if you're listening there. All right, the fun part, fun facts. So the main sources where I got my information from were WDW Magazine, Business Insider, D23, and Hollywood Reporter. And I'll be sure to link all the websites links in today's show notes. So those were the main sources that I used. There's a few others that I used as well. All right, so fun fact number 1 is Woody and Buzz were not originally a cowboy and a space ranger. So Woody was originally a ventriloquist dummy. I highly recommend Googling how the original Woody looked. He looks creepy, and thank goodness Disney did not go with this original drawing of this character. And here on YouTube, I'll post a photo of how he looked. Yeah, very creepy looking dummy. And it turns out that Disney executives were not a fan of this idea, because back at the time, and even till this day, dummies are usually associated with horror movies, and they felt like it wasn't a good choice for a kids movie. So eventually Woody's design turned into a cowboy doll, and the director of the movie, John Lasseter, he quoted that the dummy idea was originally supposed to be a hand-me-down that Andy got from his father. And so that was the original backstory of the doll. And then the idea for creating him into a cowboy pull-string doll came from John's Casper pull-string doll of Casper, the Friendly Ghost, when he was a kid. So they went with that, and thank goodness. And then Buzz was actually originally going to be a character from Pixar's earliest movie. Came out in 1988, called Tin Toy, and the main character in that movie was called Tiny. Not a space ranger at all. Highly recommend Googling how Tiny looks. But eventually the team working on this movie decided, this is not something that's exciting for kids. We need something more relevant, something that they could connect with. So they went with the idea of creating a G.I. Joe action figure. They couldn't get the rights to that toy, and then eventually they came up with the idea of Lunar Larry, which is a spaceman. I also highly recommend Googling how that rendition of Buzz looks. Very different, very plain. It kind of reminds me of the show George Shrinks. If anyone watched that as a kid, I used to watch that on TVO Kids. The drawing of Lunar Larry kind of looks like that character. So yeah, those were the 2 original ideas for Buzz and Woody. Fun fact number 2, Toy Story was not going to be a movie, but a TV special. Tin Toy, which is like the predecessor to Toy Story, the original version of Toy Story, So Pixar was originally going to turn that into a 30-minute TV special. However, when Pixar eventually partnered up with Disney, that plan changed and Disney wanted to turn it into a full-length movie. So they scrapped the idea for turning Tin Toy into a TV special and then started working on a storyline for a full-length movie. And they definitely won the jackpot with that one, because in 2025 they have 5 movies a part of this successful franchise. Fun fact number 3, my favorite. If you know me well, I love to big up my fellow Canadians, anything related to Canadian pop culture, Canadian pride, I'm there. So, fun fact number 3 is a Canadian toy company created the first toy line of Woody and Buzz. Big up Canada. The creators of Toy Story went to Hasbro and Mattel to ask them, to create a toy line for this movie. And they turned them down because they felt like the movie wasn't going to be big enough to develop a toy line. So before Toy Story came out, a small Canadian-based company called Thinkway Toys picked up the license instead and created the very first Woody and Buzz toys. So my fellow Americans, well, not my fellow Americans, but American listeners, you got us Canadians, your neighbors, to thank for launching the first toy line of Woody and Buzz. And if there's any listeners who owned or still owns the first toy line that came out of Woody and Buzz, I'm curious to know. Feel free to comment on Spotify if you're listening there, or on YouTube, or you could hit me up on Instagram at Everything 90s Podcast. All right, moving along to fun fact number 4. Tom Hanks' brother Jim Hanks does the voice for Woody for the toys, computer games, and Disney park attractions. This one I found really interesting, and I would have never picked up on the difference between Tom and Jim, because they sound very similar. Fun fact number 5, Buzz Lightyear was named after a real astronaut. So they scrapped the name Lunar Larry and came up with Buzz. So there is an former astronaut named Buzz Aldrin, and he was one of the first men to walk the moon. I think he was the second astronaut to walk the moon. And the design of Buzz Aldrin's spacesuit inspired the later designs for the character Buzz Lightyear's suit. So in a quote here from John Lasseter, the director of the movie, he said that Buzz Lightyear's suit was designed to look like the suits of early Apollo astronauts, but they wanted to make Buzz more colorful. So they chose lime green because it's his favorite color, and purple because it was his wife's Nancy's favorite color. So that's how they decided on the color scheme for Buzz. Before continuing on with the final 4 fun facts, I'm going to head into our Listener's Corner segment. I haven't done this in a while, so I'm super excited. So this is where I play or read comments that listeners have sent in based on a prompt on Instagram or Club 90s. And the prompt for this episode was to share a fond memory associated with Toy Story. So I'm going to begin with Kat. Thank you, Kat, for sending in your fond memory. She said, I went to see a viewing of Toy Story 2, and in the middle of the movie, the lights and movie went out. Apparently, we had to leave the theater for the rest of the evening because they couldn't figure out the power outages, but I remember feeling so sad because the power went out in the middle of Jessie's song. So I was literally left with a cliffhanger in tears, wondering what happened to her character. I found out maybe a couple weeks later, but as a 7-year-old, this was an intense moment. Oh, wow. Thank you, Kat, for sharing that. And I do remember that scene in Toy Story 2. It was a very moving and tear-jerker song. I remember liking Jessie's character when I first saw that movie as a kid. So thank you for sharing. Next is Adrian. He said, as a kid, I received the Toy Story VHS tape for Christmas, along with the Woody, Buzz, Rex, and Ham toys. I think I only had Woody. It was like a mini Woody toy doll. I remember wanting Buzz, but never had Buzz. But that's super cool that you had the toys as well. And I had the VHS tape as well. So thank you so much for sharing. And let me know if you still have these toys or any pictures of these toys. Next is Jenny. She said that my little brothers used to dress up as Buzz and Woody and have backyard adventures together. That is so cute. Oh, wow. I remember some of the kids in my neighborhood back in the day during Halloween season, they would dress up as well. I remember seeing those costumes as well, but that's so cute. And our last fond memory is from Allison. She said, I was one when the first one came out and didn't come to appreciate them until much later. Weirdly, the first movie Disney ever made a website for. Okay, that's interesting. So, for those of you that may not know, Allison is the creator behind Pass Foot Forward on Instagram, a Disney Channel historian. So that is super cool. I think I vaguely remember the website. After this, I'm going to Google it. But if there's anyone listening right now that remembers this website, let me know. I had no idea that this movie was the first website that Disney made for a movie. So that's super cool. Thank you for sharing, Allison. And thank you everyone else for sharing. If you are listening right now and you missed the prompt and would like to share a fond memory, no worries. You can leave a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, and I will be sure to read and reply to them. Fun fact number 6. Barbie was supposed to be one of the side characters in the first movie, but was replaced by Bo Peep. This one I found really interesting. So, Craig L. Good, he was the Pixar camera artist, in an interview said that, quote, Mattel in those days didn't want Barbie in any kind of animated film because they felt it was important for her to be neutral, allowing girls to imprint any personality they wanted. Side note, I feel like we could still do that even with Barbie being in the movie. Okay, I'll continue. Obviously, they later changed their minds. In this case, it helped us make the story stronger. Barbie was going to show up driving her Corvette in Sid's house and tell Woody, come with me if you want to live, which was a Sarah Connor reference in the movie. I think it's Terminator. I remember looking up who Sarah Connor was after reading this quote, but I believe Terminator. But the good thing is Barbie ends up in Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. I'm not sure if she is in or Ken is in Toy Story 4. But yeah, in Toy Story 2, she appears as tour guide Barbie. Very annoying character in my opinion. I remember her very distinctly. And another memory I have of her at the end credits of Toy Story 2, she appears and she's talking to the audience. And at the end of her spiel, she's like, she stops smiling and she's like, my cheeks hurt. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that is the fun fact history about Barbie in relation to Toy Story. Fun fact number 7. It took 4 years to make this movie. So, this movie combines the talents of 27 animators, crazy, 22 technical directors, and 61 filmmakers. That's a huge team for this incredible movie, and it paid off because even watching this movie today, it still holds up. Like visually, it holds up in 2025. So this team did a phenomenal job, and I hope they all got their I hope they got rightfully compensated for their work, getting those residuals, because yeah, this is an incredible film. And also to note that there were a total of 25,000, or sorry, more than 25,000 storyboards involved with this movie. 25,000. Let that sink in. Dang. Man, I really hope everyone involved in making this movie, I hope they got their money and their flowers, because 25,000 storyboards, crazy. Fun fact number 8, Tim Allen was the second choice to do the voiceover for Buzz Lightyear. So I actually remember learning this fact in, I want to say, Chasing Childhood podcast. I think they covered this movie. I'm not sure. I think I heard it from them a couple years ago, but the first choice for Buzz Lightyear's voice was actually Billy Crystal. So he was asked to voice Buzz, but he turned the role down. And in a later interview, I'm not sure what year this was, he was interviewed by ABC, and he mentioned to them that this was his major career regret of not doing Buzz. So I think the director or someone who worked on the movie heard this, that Billy Crystal regretted it. They heard about it, and then they ended up giving him Mike Wazowski's to do the voice of Mike Wazowski in the movie Monsters, Inc. Fun fact number 9. Randy Newman, the writer and singer of the theme song You Got a Friend in Me, wrote this song within 1 day. This song was nominated for the Golden Globe Award and the Academy Award for Best Song in 1996. Unfortunately, it was beat out by Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas in both awards categories. So Colors of the Wind won the Golden Globe Award as well as the Oscar Award. And fun fact number 10. This one is actually a question. Where's Andy's dad? Where is his dad in this movie and in this film series? So there has been a lot of speculation and theories as to why Andy's dad is not present. Some folks have theorized that his mother and the dad divorced. Some has theorized that he died. So one source I found from Beano.com said that it was too expensive to animate another human. So that is why there's no dad. And another source I found out through a piece done by Hollywood Reporter said that Andy's father died, according to a guy named Mike Mozart. So, Mike Mozart claimed to be friends with the head of Pixar, the head writer on the movie. His name was Joe Ranft, and Mike has said in a YouTube interview by Super Carlin Brothers YouTube channel, said that Joe shared the backstory of Andy's father. So, according to this story, which has been debunked, and I'll go into that afterwards. So, according to Mike, he said that Joe told him, Andy's dad, also named Andy, was the original owner of Woody. Sometime around 1959, Andy, the father, was diagnosed with polio and his toys were destroyed. But he managed to spare Woody, Slinky Dog, and Mr. Potato Head from destruction by hiding them in a box under his bed. By the way, I'm just reading the report here from Hollywood Reporter. A few decades later, Andy, the father, was married and had a son of his own. Together, the family moved into Andy's parents' home, where he was stricken with post-polio syndrome. In his final moments with his son, Andy gives Andy Jr. a key and asks him to bring a chest down from the attic. Unfortunately, when Andy Jr. returns, his father passes away. And he goes on to explain that this is why part of, I can't remember if he says this or someone or fans have theorized this, but the toys think that Andy in the movie is actually Andy the father, because they were locked away for so long and haven't seen him. They think that Andy is his father. Interesting backstory. However, one of the writers on Toy Story, his name is Andrew Stanton. He said that this is completely false. It is, to quote, he quoted, completely and utter fake news. Everyone go back to your homes. Nothing to see here, folks. End quote. I was there. Hashtag I was there. So he tweeted this after that interview came out with Mike Mozart. I don't have the dates here, but I'll link this article in the show notes. For me personally, I think maybe the reason why he has no dad is the first source seems more plausible. It was just too expensive to animate another human at the time. But yeah, if anyone has any theories or more information as to why this movie doesn't include Andy's dad, please let me know. I'm interested in hearing your theories. All right, and that is the end of the fun facts that I have here to share with you all. Please let me know if you have any fun facts related to Toy Story or any of the other Toy Story movies in this franchise. I would love to learn more. And as always, you could connect with me on Instagram at Everything 90s Podcast if you're on that. And right here on Spotify, you could leave a comment in the comment section, or here on YouTube. And please be sure to join Club 90s. There are two membership options. There's a free membership option and a paid membership option. The paid membership option at the time of recording is $5 a month Canadian, and you get access to a whole bunch of goodies. So click the link in the show notes to find out more. And if you haven't already, please rate and review my podcast, Everything 90s. Leaving a rating helps my podcast get discovered, so I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much. And until next time, take care.